Not to ask a loaded question, but when you look out on the world today, the landscape, what do you see? Are you optimistic about the future?
Well, I guess we're talking about America.
Yeah, but it seems to be the lines are blurred so much with the chaos, you know?
Well, here's what I think, and I'll be concise. I think we're living in an age of eventuality, in that I'm guessing I'm older than you, and I have enough laps around the track now to where I have a better understanding of the Reagan era in America and in the world. But specifically about America, I see now that the war on drugs was a war on the poor and the non-white, or the poor white. That Reagan had a war on gay people and a war on the economy. And there's a systematic dumbing down of the American electorate. Why? Because you need to fill battlefields and prison cells.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're making your big money. And so a generation and a half, 2 generations later, you have a population that for the most part doesn't travel, doesn't read, not because they're bad or stupid, there's no time. Because they're busy hustling back in their crap car to the cubicle to grind out the work week to get 0.75% of what they need to get through the year. And they don't know, and they don't have time to want to know.
Yeah.
To where education, reading, and like an NPR scrubbing of any topic, no one has time for it, so it's reduced to sound bites and people talking over each other on, pundit arguments. And so with that, you have a country that's tremendously good and privileged that has a wacky worldview that's not informed by reality. Because these countries that some people point at and think, well, they're all scratching in the sand. I've been to those countries, and it's not anything like that. And so why wouldn't a guy with a corny populist message get over? Yeah. I mean, it makes total sense to me. And last year I was on tour, and I did every possible interview, as you do. And in fact, I call everyone a day early, see? I was asked over and over again, do you think Donald Trump can win? And I said, yeah. And interviewers like almost incredulous, like, oh, come on. I'm like, what do you mean, come on? I mean, don't ever bet your money on the American electorate, because we got freedom. You can't count on us to do anything but what we're going to do at that moment. A whole lot of people didn't think that Roy Moore would lose.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised by what's going on now. And since media is now a result-oriented performance, it's a ratings-based media now.
Yeah.
At 24/7, they got to keep that conversation ball up in the air. And ever since OJ, major news outlets are kind of reality shows.
Well,
Trump was kind of made for it.
Well, with what you're saying too about Reagan, that was actually leads into my next question was, what do you think about the adage "nothing's the same, everything's the same" when you apply it to society right now?
Well, what do I think everything's the same?
Well, I mean, like it's one of those things where when I talk to people from my background in history and also as a journalist, is like people keep saying, "Oh, things are so bad now." It's like, well, actually, these are the same kind of conflicts and ideas and issues that have been around for the better part of half a century.
Yeah, and humans will always kind of mortar and pestle these issues into a powder as the centuries go by. There'll always be homophobia and racism and war, because that's just how Homo sapiens seems to make it through the centuries. However, I think we're all doing it now with dirtier water, cloudier skies, an ever increasingly hot planet, and dwindling and diminishing resources, and more hostile borders.
Yeah.
And so the fat has melted off the land, and here we are.
Yeah.
And so there's not as much cushion, and financial instability keeps a lot of people kind of in an economic stress position, where they're not crouching or they're not standing. They're in that middle where they're in pain, and you can push them over with one hand. They're being tortured, and don't expect to get a humane or sane response from a lot of people. Hence, like the anger you see at Trump rallies. I mean, wow. Those people cannot be reasoned with. I'm not putting them down. I'm just saying I don't want to, that guy following me out to the parking lot and going to his car to get his gun.
I went and covered a Trump rally here in Asheville, and it was the first time in my career writing about politics and feature stories that I actually felt unsafe in a crowd of people as a journalist.
Yeah.
Because he pointed out to the media.
You're the enemy.
Yeah. He pointed out to the media, and people turned to me with the most angriest of faces and said, he's talking about you. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Right. Well, but here we are. And it reminds me of the Soviet Union I used to read about. Or, Putin's Russia in 2017. And so I think that's my worldview, that we've been to this place before, certainly, but there was less fat on the land. And I think the desperation is a bit more real. And what has changed, since I was young and Nixon was around, is that the political divide has become so polarized, where if the Democrats do this, then the Republicans have to do that.
Yeah.
And you're like, you can't talk to him, he's a Republican.
Yeah.
You can't talk to him, he's a Democrat. Like, oh, come on. It's the only way Congress works is if everyone gets together and everyone gets part of what they wanted. And so now we just have scorched earth, and who's ever has the majority, it's going to be their way or the highway. And with this tax bill, there's no sane explanation for why this thing might pass today, in that no one's read it, and all the responsible parties are saying from every rooftop that this isn't going to be good for a vast majority of Americans. Yeah. And so that's where we're at. What's encouraging is young people who won't be sold on their parents' homophobia or racism and lack of being scientifically inclined.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine, I shouldn't, this is a cover, I didn't write it. A buddy of mine, Shepard Fairey, the artist who does all the Obey Giant stuff, I was over at his place a while ago, and he was telling me a story. He did the Obama Hope poster.
Yep.
Obama contacted him and said, hey, I like that poster you did. Would you come and meet me at the White House? And, of course, Shepard finds the time. He flies out to D.C. with his wonderful family. It was the day after the last election, and Trump is now the president-elect. And Shepard's sitting in the Oval Office, like, just devastated about the Trump win. And he said Obama's really upbeat, probably because he's getting out of there finally. But he said, Mr. President, why are you so upbeat? Look at this loss. He goes, yeah, but all the things I put in place, they're all going to happen. He said, one thing I learned by being president, there's like a billion ways to get in. You just have to learn that there's a lot of doors, and you just keep on trying different things. Yeah. And he said, well, how can you be so optimistic about the future? And he pointed at Shepard's two daughters and said them, because they're going to vote.
Yeah.
And they're not anything like what happened in this election. Like, in 10 years or 12 years when they're voting, America will be different. Everything will be different. And you just got to hang in there.
Well, it's definitely one of those things too, where it's almost like the byproduct of this chaos is that people, I guess you could quote unquote say the silent majority of progressive folks are finally waking up a little bit.
Well, you got baby slapped and kitty punched until last year. Now you're getting a real shot into the boards. It's a Phillies Flyer game.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing what you can lose, and you see how bad it can get, how quickly and how easily. The gloves are off now, and that next shot to your ribs is going to set you back. And so that's where we are. And I think a lot of people are woken up going, whoa, no way did he just say that, and no one's calling him on it.
Yeah.
And as much as I fight this stuff becoming normal in my life, I can't help it. I just adjust. I'm that kind of creature. I just adjust. Yeah. I don't cave in. But the president says something like, wait a minute. First off, no grammar, no syntax. And you're wrong. And man, if I say something wrong, like on stage, I get like 30 emails before the show's over. I get read a riot act.
Yeah.
I mean, I get called out. Trust me, if I had $1 for every hate letter, I mean, that word critique, that was correct. Well, damn, man, I got to up my game. The President of the United States, like if Obama said any of this stuff, you know, they just would have went, oh, look at the crazy, angry black guy.
Yeah.
He would have been just hammered. And so we have a new normal. You have a president who, he's kind of the punk rock president, because all this idea like, well, a president does this. Well, no, that's when something is unprecedented, it means it hasn't been done before. Here's your change. Yeah. And now you get to understand that elections really have consequences. And too many people look at Trump and saying something wacky or going to his dumb country club and like, he's not getting anything done. The sad part is he's getting a ton done to the EPA, to the FDA. I mean, he's ruinous. And the judges he's appointing, and he's kicking ass on that. Yep. I mean, he's racking it up with like LBJ 4 days in office zeal. I mean, he's really kicking ass. And this is like super long-lasting consequences. What he's done to the EPA, America will be paying for that longer than it will be paying for the damaged foreign policy. Now, it's not North Korea.
Yeah.
It's what's going to happen with deregulated companies belching out poison into streams.
Now, you